Welcome to the Dyson's Effect.
A show about everyday situations, issues, and topics we talk about and give our opinions.
We may even listen to yours.
We are your hosts, Johnny,
And Theresa.
also known as Mr. and Mrs. Dyson.
Hey, y'all. We back. Well, I'm back. We got something interesting to talk about today, and I want to jump right into it. Now, if you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube or the listening notes that we rank pretty high on, we got some interesting things going on in our household and our family right now. So to get right into it, as you may be aware that my wife, the lovely, vivacious, the better piece of this podcast and the better piece of our relationship, my wife is not here. She has been going through some health issues. Now, for the new listener, she has had some health issues in the past, and she has a health issue that we've been going through. And while I'll wait to talk about that, or while I'll wait to see if she will come back on and talk about that and express those situations and things that she's been battling and the new challenges we are up against, I recently had a thought I was pondering on and was sitting up and thinking about, and it's very interesting. So she is in the hospital, and it's outpatient surgery that she has to go through, and this surgery started early in the morning. When I mean early in the morning, we had to be there, I think around 6 in the morning, so we had to leave around 5:30ish or 5 o'clock, around 5 o'clock in the morning. So while we there, they prepping her, we go through all the things, everything for surgery and everything. So while I'm there, I had my book, I had my reading material, I have the things that I'm working on, the things I'm writing on, my programs and everything. And I came to the conclusion that of myself, and I was trying to sit and think, do I have PTSD? Now, the thing about PTSD is, and for those who may or may not know, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, it's different for everyone, and I was really trying to think about it because, as I stated before, the situations that have been challenging for us as a relationship and for my wife and also for me. But just for a quick second, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, it's a mental health problem people sometimes develop after experiencing a life challenging, threatening, troublesome, a difficult, some type of event. Some can equate it to a car accident. Some can equate it to war, rape, many different issues that would this be post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, if we break that word down, post means after it, later. So that means it's after the fact. So this is something that affects you later in life. Stress, post-traumatic. Traumatic is any type of trauma. Now, the reason why I broke this down is because this happens mentally and physically. Sometimes when we go through stress later in life over a situation, our body reacts to it. So some people may get nervous, their hands may get to shaking, their palms may get to sweaty. Some people may cry. Some people may do physically may do a lot of things. Their body may go through a lot of different changes. They may sweat a lot. They may have a panic attack. Their blood pressure may go up. So PTSD affects people traumatically with their body as well from their trauma. So that stress can do a lot of things with that. And as we know before, the different stresses that we have affects us many different ways: mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So the disorder is because it's a disorientation of the body. It's a disorientation of your regular day of how you operate. It's a disorder of something that you normally wouldn't do, or is messing up your normal routine, or you can't sleep at night. It's a disorder. It's messing up your appetite. It's a disorder in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So to break that down, that's the post-traumatic stress disorder that comes after some trauma that has happened to you in life. And sometimes people, it passes over, and sometimes it doesn't. And it may fade or it may not. But I was trying to think, do I have post-traumatic stress disorder? Now, I'm in this hospital. My wife is there, and she's going through her situation. And I'm trying to think, based on the situation with my father, as many people know, my father passed away when I was 11. And it was 7 of us. So we was all different ages, and the youngest was a set of twins. So all of us are affected by our father dying some type of way. The younger 3 hasn't had a relationship or an effect to no interaction, because they were so young. They was babies. And the older 4 of us, we remember him. So that's traumatic within itself, because it's traumatic of us remembering him and the situation of how he left. So my father passed of some type of a pneumonia. I talked about it before. But the thing, I'm curious if I have post-traumatic stress disorder, because I was wondering all the times we've been to the hospital over my wife's situation. All the times I've been to the hospital and people have babies. It never really crossed my mind, but the inkling is that I can still remember the days, not one day, not 2 days, like the days we was going to the hospital when my father passed. And I was trying to think, is that PTSD? And then I was trying to think that, well, am I traumatized by it? It's because hospitals have the smell, and sometimes when my wife is in the hospital for certain situations, I have to spend a night in the hospital. No problem. Spend a night in the hospital, but I have that hospital smell on me, like it's on my clothes. I have to take a shower, and that smell puts me in the mind of when I was going to the hospital when my father passed, when I was 11 years old. Now, I'm over 40 now, and that's over 30 years ago. Now, also, granted, going to these hospitals, it just make me see other people in certain situations, and although a hospital is needed, although I know what a hospital is for, although I know all the ramifications that comes with the hospital, in my mind, sometimes I sit and wonder about a hospital, because at any given day, if you think about it, just think about it. At any given day, a hospital offers new life to people. It gives people life, have babies, or it gives them a new start over based on, if they're able to start their life over from their health situations and, a new beginning, but it also takes a life. And that's just something that, people go there when they're sick. people go there when they're dying, if they have a death-defying wound or anything. And it's just something I was thinking about, like, wow, like the hospital is a beginning and an end to many people. So I'm just sitting up thinking about all this. I'm just thinking. And I'm sitting here wondering, like, does my father pass? Did it traumatize me? So I started reading, looking up things like, do I have these traits? Do I have these things? Am I affected mentally by this, physically, spiritually, emotionally? When I was younger, a whole lot younger, I used to have dreams about my father. That was he really dead, or was it just a dream? Or I don't know if it was a dream or a nightmare, but it wasn't scary. It's just like sometimes I would have a dream about my father, and I was interested into that aspect. Like, why would I be dreaming about him when I'm a full-grown man now? Now, probably because it's some unanswered. It was at that time. It was some unanswered questions. That was probably over 15, 20 years ago when I used to dream about it. But I wonder if that was a sign of PTSD. Like all these thoughts coming up. Like I still remember certain things about my father. I still remember about the time, all the time span when he passed. And partially, if we're going to be a little bit honest, is because I do got a pretty decent memory. Like I remember a lot of different things. You know, my mother cracked jokes on me all the time and says, like, you don't forget nothing. Some stuff I still remember. But I don't remember like a lot of stuff that I break down crying or anything. I'm just wondering, like, is these implications of PTSD from my father passing? Because as I said before, our father passing, it has affected all 7 of us differently. All 7 of us is affected from our father dying. So one of the things I tried to see if I could look up a certain criteria. And this criteria comes from the American Psychiatric Association of criteria for PTSD, to see if you have any of these traits. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you must meet all 8 of them in order to be diagnosed with PTSD. So let me go through a few of these and let's see if I'm, got any of these traits or any of these things that's a part of me now. So the first one is the criterion of A. You must have been exposed to or threatened with death. Or you must have had an actual or serious injury, or actual or threatened sexual violence. You must have experienced at least one of these things in the following ways. Basically, a first-hand experience, witnessing the event, learning that a close friend or relative experienced it or was threatened. You're regularly exposed to other people's trauma, maybe for your job. So mine will be the third one, learning that a close friend or relative experienced it or was threatened. That is the third one, so that is A. That was my I want to say that was my first experience with death from my father. And when I was young, I talked about this before, when I was young, after it, I couldn't even say the words my father passed away. Like if someone asked me or if I had to go to school or something, I couldn't even say the words. Like I would break down crying. Now, mind you, that was 12. I was 12 and 13 years old at the time. But that goes with that situation. Another one is the criteria B. You experience the trauma over and over through at least one of the following. Now, you experience the trauma through flashbacks, nightmares, okay, thoughts you can't control, emotional distress, physical symptoms when thinking about the event. Now, this is interesting. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because I don't experience trauma. I just remember it. It's not nothing that like still bring tears to me. Like, I'm still heartbroken over my father passing. So I don't have flashbacks. No, I don't have nightmares. Although I don't know if there was nightmares or dreams years ago at one point in time. Thoughts you can't control. I didn't really have that, for lack of better words. Emotional distress, I wasn't affected as a kid. As a kid I was affected emotionally when I was younger. I have some family members that tell me that every now and again they still cry when they see a picture of our father. So that's the emotional distress. Physical symptoms when thinking about the event. So the physicality of the trauma. I don't think I have the second criteria, which is B. I don't have it, although I've had some of these before when I was a whole lot younger, when I wasn't even a teenager at the time. So it affected me then. My father was something else, y'all. My father he's one of those men that he was a guy's guy, a man's man. Like, he one of those men that, like, men wanted to be like, men depended on, and men wanted to be his friend. And I like hearing the stories of my father now, because I can just picture him doing these things that I hear about, and the jokes that he used to tell. He was very, very, very hilarious person. Just all out interesting man. And we lost him to pneumonia. I just think about him all the time, and I laugh because my aunt, I'm gonna say it wrong, but my aunt Tia, which we call it my auntie Tia, she tells us stories about things my father used to do when he was young, and I don't know. You don't know how I get it, because I'm the same way. Like, that's how I know. Yeah, that's my dad. Yeah. I'm the same way. I can't help it. I can't help it. So C, you avoid things that remind you of the trauma to meet this criterion. You must do one of these things. So you avoid things that remind you of the trauma. So you avoid thoughts or feelings related to the trauma. For example, you might refuse to talk about if it is war that you're traumatized by. You refuse to talk about the war, or you refuse to talk about the car accident, or or what have you. If war was the cause of your symptoms, this would be it. You avoid things that remind you of the trauma. You might not watch war movies for fear of triggering painful feelings, for instance. So, for example, if war was cause your PTSD, you won't watch any movies. You stay away from anything talking about it, seeing it, hearing about it, all those things, all of the above that relates to your senses. You stay away from it. No, my amazing wife, actually gave me for Christmas, gave me a big picture of my father, which was super, super, super dope and beautiful of her, as always. And we all have pictures of my father a lot, so I don't mind seeing pictures of him. I don't cry when I see my father, so there's no traumatic part like crying when I see him. But I do have like thoughts that come to mind every time I see him. I have an interesting thought that comes to mind. Like, I remember when he did this, or I remember when he did that. So and I don't avoid anything. I love hearing stories about my father. I love hearing stories about my father. Like, the people that talk about my father. Oh my gosh. If y'all can hear some of these stories. I love hearing these stories because people still remember him to this day. Like I said, he was a guy's guy. And he was who he was. Unshamefully so. He didn't hide who he was. He'll tell you about yourself in a minute. And like go get you something to eat with, take you to go get something to eat with him. Like he just like that's the type of person he was. It's hard to describe. He was an amazing man, and I wonder what my experience would have been if I would have known him more growing up, for one, and what would my experience would be with him as I've gotten older, as I matured. It's just something that I wonder about. Like, interesting. Criteria D: you have negative thoughts or feelings that started or got worse after the trauma. To meet this criteria, at least two of these must be true for you. You remember little about the event. Very little. You remember? No, it's not me. You are overly negative about yourself or the world. No, couldn't be a life and fitness coach if I was that negative. You blame yourself or others for the trauma, even if it's not true. No, I don't blame anyone for my father. You lack interest in activities you used to enjoy. No. Funny thing is, I used to have well, let me go to the next one. You feel lonely and isolated. No, my wife won't let me feel that. You find it hard to be positive or experience joy. So that's kind of the other one. I remember someone gave my father a basketball, like a brown suede ball. Really wasn't hitting on anything. And we had it around the house for a while. And right, I want to say the year before he passed, or right that same year, I was just learning to kind of like play basketball. I was just kind of like, okay, getting the hang of things a little bit. So, but my father let us play outside, but we 10, 11 years old. We ain't, I don't think he played basketball, so it never caught his eye that I'm kind of learning how to dribble the ball on my own. Now, fast forward, a couple years later, I say around 12, when I was 12, probably a year after he passed, I'm slowly learning. Taught myself how to play basketball. Taught myself how to dribble. Taught myself how to shoot. And I'm not sure if I would have had that experience with my father. Like, I wonder if my father would have, like, tried to show me. Because, for men, this is an interesting trait. When you learn how to play basketball, or if you know the fundamentals and all that stuff, you'll teach your son or daughter how you learn, and you'll teach them how to play basketball based on your knowledge and experience. The good thing about that was I had none, so I had to learn it on my own. So I created my own style. I created my own way of learning. And also with my other brother, he learned how to play. We kind of like learned how to play basketball on our own, which is a big thing, because we was pretty good. So I'm not sure if we would have had that experience with our father. Plus, he was strict, so I'm not sure we'd have had that experience, or if he would have been like trying to like teach us his way, or take us to somebody and we get that experience, and we probably wasn't really ready for the experience. Like, it probably was a good thing we learned on our own and became really, really good at basketball. So that's interesting to me. So that was for that criteria. I don't think I met that one. Now, for this criteria, your symptoms started or got worse after the traumatic event. At least two of these things must be a part of your experience. So, for example, you're often irritable or angry. Not me. You constantly feel on guard, or you're easily startled. No. You engage in risky or dangerous behavior. No, my wife won't let me do that. Even if she would, I'm not that. I'm not that person. You have trouble sleeping. I sleep amazing. No. You have trouble staying focused. No, that's not. No, that's not it. No, I don't mean any of these things. Now, have these things got worse after the traumatic event? Now, it's interesting because how would they get worse if he if I was 11 when he passed? So let's just say over a progression of time, if I had trouble sleeping all throughout the years and so on and so forth. So maybe I get that point. I understand that point. I also understand risky or dangerous behavior, so I started doing riskier. I was around a lot of different people, but not risky or dangerous behavior from an average kid from our city, Benton Harbor, Michigan. It was average, the stuff that I was doing. You have trouble staying focused. No, I'm one of the few of my family and friends that, got a few degrees, so I'm pretty decent on staying focused. I'm decent. I'm okay. I mean, I'm no better than anybody else, but I'm okay. So that's that. I don't think I meet that criteria. So for the next one, you meet this criterion if any of your symptoms have lasted for more than a month. Maybe if I was a kid, so maybe if some of this stuff was true and it lasted probably till I was a teenager, maybe till a late teenager, to like 16, 17, maybe that was true around that time frame. The next criteria, your symptoms make it hard to work or keep a daily life. That was true, kinda, because because of my father passed, we were not going to school, and my mom was working 2 jobs almost. One of them was third shift. That was rough on her. That was rough on her. So, if you're comparing work / daily life to a kid that was, just becoming to find out who he is at that time, at that age, maybe, but some would even still say that I was a baby at that time. So I don't know how I look, but no, not for that one. And last but not least, your symptoms are not, so that's aren't, caused by medicines, illegal drugs, or another illness. So basically, if you meet all these standards, basically your doctor, he'll diagnose you with PTSD. Now, with that being said, I think that overall, if we're going to talk about PTSD, I think PTSD is something that is customized for you. Because it's customized based on your situation, your events, and something that you went through. Everyone's stress is different for each one. And this is a very serious condition that, that develops to a person, or, they have experienced or witnessed something that is traumatic to them, something that's terrifying to them, something that caused some type of physical harm to them, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, in some type of way. So the PTSD is one of the things that's a lasting consequence that comes afterwards, and no merit of your own. It's just one of those things that comes after it, and it causes a lot of fear, helplessness, people being scared, all type of problems they have with relationships, of course, with family, friends. Some people may not be able to go to work. Some people, have to take drugs because of it. So I think that, and also something that's interesting. I was watching, I can't remember the show that I was watching. A guy kind of had PTSD over Hurricane Katrina because all of the bodies that he's seen, and he couldn't save a lot of people. And that was interesting. Like, who would have thought someone had PTSD? Because I think he was a firefighter. And he saved so many people during that time frame. And he took it hard that he couldn't save a lot of people during Hurricane Katrina. This is one of the things that is very interesting to me. It's very interesting to me because If any of my family members is going to listen to this, I wonder if they have PTSD. I wonder if their sleep is affected by it. They can't eat. Their daily life is affected by it. You know, this is one of the things that's something to think about because, you know, in many communities, not just the black community, you know, we rarely seek help. You know, just recently, well, maybe over the past 2 years, it's very common for people to talk about it and administer some type of help toward someone to get for them. You know, it became common to say like, hey, all these issues that's growing now, it's becoming better and better common to get a life coach or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or someone to talk these things out. We are living in a different day and age of time. We are living in a different day and age of time on how we view things, see things, our perception of things. As I've talked about earlier, perception is your reality. How you perceive is your reality. So could you imagine your perception on this, you know, from, or use me for an example. Could you imagine my perception on someone passing at the age from 11? Then you go to a teenager to 13. Then you go to 16, right around when I had my first daughter. Then you go to 19, right around I went to college. And you go to 23, right around when I graduated from college, right? Then you go from 25 when after I go through all the headache of trying to find a job and I get a job, you know, and all these thoughts going through my mind, and it is or isn't this issue for a young person like me, or someone that has something similar issues, and so on and so forth as time go on. Like, also, just think if, you know, you've been abused. You could have post-traumatic stress disorder from being abused. I had a friend years ago that raised his hand toward the cabinet to reach something over his, you know, new girlfriend, and she jumped, and it's because her previous boyfriend used to beat on her, and that stuck with her for a while. So being that stuck with her for a while, that's something that may affect her for quite some time at that time. And, you know, if she doesn't challenge those things or fight those things or work through those things to get over it, that's a debilitating factor for if it will control her or not. So that's why I'm wondering. So to go back, you know, I'm in these hospitals with my wife all the time, and I can still smell that hospital stench from ever since when I was a kid at 10, 11 years old. I can still smell it. I can still, you know, go to that eerie place. Like, it's an energy, it's an eerie energy that hospitals have that's just, it's a lot. So I still can go right into the middle of that feeling like, oh man, I can still, when we're in these hospitals, I can't help but like look at certain people and like, man, I know they just wish this was over. I wonder what they're going through. Man, I want to tell them. Some of these people, kids, mothers, fathers, people our age and younger, I be want to tell them like it's gonna be all right, but I be want to mind my own business at the same time. Like that's interesting because I'm wondering about them and their situation based on what happened to me in my situation at 11 years old. You know, and that still sticks with me. But time has passed, and I've matured, of course, and I think I evolved through that process and matured at the same time. So I was always wondered, and to an extent, I wonder, could anyone have PTSD over a family member that's passed away? Because how long does it take for you to get over it? Right? Some people never get over it. Some people take them years to get over a loved one being lost. Especially for marriages, right? So, it's something to think about, because if you figure that, how I'm affected by this situation, it now controls me. When someone loses, I mean, just the thought of losing anyone is traumatic, and especially if they've been taken away from you, by a senseless murder. If they have been, hanging on for so long, and God called them come home. If they had health issues their whole life, certain people are born with certain health issues, and it makes it a traumatic thing. But people persevere over so long, you forget that they have these health issues. So these are all things that we think about when it comes to PTSD. Some people are walking around that have it, and we don't pay them no mind, or we like to look over it. We do have an opportunity to treat our veterans better. We do have an opportunity to treat people better, to give them something to fight for, to not fall into the hole of despair when it comes to losing someone, or when it comes to the post-traumatic stress disorder, whether it be war, a car accident, or abuse, or anything. We all have an opportunity to try to fight through it and help someone else fight through it. So I think that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap this one up. This is just something I was thinking about, and I wanted to do like the old Arsenio Hall. I do have PTSD. So I don't think I have PTSD. I just think that, it's just, these are just thoughts that just stick with me for the rest of my life. But, I do have friends, family, and people that's just like family. So a lot of my brothers, a lot of my sisters. And I tell them all the time, and I don't over exaggerate, that if you're going through anything, you can always call me, or call someone that you can depend on. Get you a list going on, and call somebody you can depend on going through these changes. And if these things also is triggering other issues like bipolarism or your schizophrenia and so on and so forth, you have to take your medication in this process, right? You have to take your medication in this process to make sure you can grapple a hold on it, right? So with the PTSD, if you or anyone you know may have any type of PTSD, I have a few numbers. One number is 1-800-662-4357. That's 1-800-662-4357. And that's the SAMHSA National Helpline for people with PTSD. Now, there is another one that is for PTSD and people that is struggling with it. We have an opportunity to make sure that these people can get some type of help, can get some type of care, because one thing is that, we never know unless we ask. We never know unless we try and help their situation or talk to our family and friends and loved ones on a regular basis. So we never know what someone may or may not be going through. Now, in certain symptoms and certain things that's going on, yes, I do get it. Yes, we have to stay abreast of things. One of the American Addiction Centers, I think they have one. I'm going to get this number. It is. Well, this is interesting. Um, Also, this is, well, I'll save this topic for later because it coincides with this. Um, so it's kind of like a part two for this, but I don't want to give it away. So if anybody's dealing with any type of PTSD, make sure you call that number. If anybody's, yeah, I'm going to say it. If anybody is dealing with any type of the cause of the PTSD, suicide, or the thoughts of suicide, you want to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And once again, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration number is 1-800-662-4357. So, get in contact with these people to make sure they're giving you everything that they need, all the resources that you have, all the resources that we're dealing with. Anybody that's fighting with PTSD, challenge it, go test it out and see if you do have it. Listen to these questions, look up some more things, talk to a doctor or your local physician to figure this out. And keep everyone, this world, us, friends, family, loved ones, keep them in your prayers in this challenging time that we are in. And as always, this is Johnny, your benevolent coach. Our email is the DYSON'S Effect at Hotmail. The DYSON'S Effect on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My information is your benevolent coach on Instagram and Facebook, benevolent coach on Twitter. Please get in contact with me. Email us if you have any questions. Get in contact with us to stay more open-minded on the process and everything that we're doing, so us to grow. Any questions you may have, any ideas, just shoot them to us in an email or text it to us with this new number we're going to have in the future, baby. So, this is Johnny, and there's no Theresa, and this is another episode of the one and only, the DYSON'S Effect. Peace, love, and blessings, y'all.